What's up, everybody? Back here with another video. Now today we're actually headed out to DC, my neck of the woods, my stomping ground, because we're gonna go check out this property, and it's an estate sale. Now I'm looking at this property to potentially get this house under contract. And now remember, when you get a house under contract, there's plenty of things you can do with it. Your exit strategy is up to you. You can purchase the property or you can wholesale it. But my goal is to get it under contract at a price that I know that I can either sell it, wholesale it, or fix it up and sell it to another buyer. Now this house is an estate sale, which also means a probate listing, which what that means is the owner passed away and somebody else is responsible for selling the house. Now, I love these type of deals. I love them. You know why? Because there's no emotion involved in these deals. Typically, when somebody is selling a property through a probate listing, that means the owner passed away. So the person who had emotional attached to it, or an emotional attachment to it, is no longer living. So that somebody else is responsible for selling it. So a lot of times they just want to sell it for the best smooth of ease process or the best deal possible. So my goal is to get it under contract. So I'm not gonna wrap you all up too much. Let's go check the property out. All right, so we're inside, and damn, this thing is messed up, but I love it. The worse, the better. The worse, the better. The worse condition a property is, the better. So this house is 1,100 square feet above grade. I'm assuming there's a basement. And I think I see what is wrong with this property. So if you can see through this window, it's probably a little hard to see, but the property is landlocked. It has a backyard, but the backyard, the alley ends there, not here. So there's no room for parking, which sucks. That's gonna be a major deterrent. A major deterrent. So there's no parking on the property, which is going to be a major deterrent for anybody who's going to buy this property. Because you got to keep in mind, this is pretty much almost $1 million house once renovated. And if somebody's going to pay $1 million, they typically want to have a parking spot. So that's going to be something that's going to make this house a little difficult to sell. Another thing is this property is zoned for condo conversion. Well, condo conversion, I believe you have to be able to provide parking. So I'm not sure if that's a requirement, but that's another deterrent. So if you convert these to condos, which you can convert them to 2 condos, there's no parking on the premises. So that's a huge risk to the investor who buys this thing and wants to convert it to condos, because there's no parking. All right, so here's the kitchen. So this house is messed up. I mean, it doesn't really matter because the house will be gutted anyway, but that's the basement. There's no lights on in this house, so I'm gonna go down there, but I'm gonna go down there at the end. Yo, I don't know if y'all can see this, but there are weeds growing. These are weeds. It's hard to see, but there are weeds growing through the attic. Jesus Christ. I don't even know if it's safe for me to be in here. So here's a better view of the backyard. As you can see, there's a backyard, but there's nowhere to park because the alley access ends right there. It ends at the neighbor's house. So there's no way to get back here and park back here. That space right there belongs to the Salvation Army that's next door. And that's another thing. The Salvation Army is directly next door. So, you know, that might be a deterrent to a future homeowner. They may not want to live next to a Salvation Army. I don't know what goes on in the Salvation Army on a day-to-day basis, but that might be a deterrent to a future buyer. All right, here's the master bedroom, I guess. To be honest with you, the condition of the house doesn't really matter the most because this house will be gutted anyway, but you definitely want to check every house out to make sure there's nothing weird about the house that's going to, damn, this roof is about to cave in any minute, bro. This roof is shot. Let's get up out of here. Now, you definitely want to make sure you go check out basements if you're going to buy property here in the DMV or, you know, anywhere in the DMV, because basements, a lot of times they don't have the proper head height. You got to have at least 7 feet in the basement, to do any construction in the basement. So if you don't have 7 feet head height in the basement, then you have to dig down, and digging down costs probably about $40,000. So that drastically affects the deal. It's a lot of work. It's an extra permitting process that you have to go through, and it's a lot of money involved in digging a basement out. So if you're buying a property, make sure you know the head height of the basement before you buy it. All right, so here's the basement. It's hard to see because there's no light on down here, but the head height down here is less than 7 feet. So you have to dig the basement out and add a whole nother foot of headspace, which can cost you anywhere to $40,000 to $50,000. Very expensive, labor intensive, and could cost time with permitting because that's a whole nother permitting process. All right, guys, so we're back at the crib, and I just want to really quick run through the numbers on this property that I just showed you so you all can see how I analyze my deals and how I run my offers. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start backwards. You want to start with the after repair value. What is the potential peak value of this property? Now, this property is in Washington, D.C. It's in Northwest. It's in an area called Petworth, which is a very rich, well-to-do neighborhood for the most part, expensive houses. Now, a house that size, if you can get a 4-bed, 4-bath, or a 4-bed, 3.5-bath, you should get $1 million for a row home in that neighborhood. But you have to account for the lack of parking. The house doesn't have any parking. So you really can't value the property at its peak value in the neighborhood because it's lacking something that the other houses have. So in my opinion, you should knock off at least $50,000 when you're evaluating the value of that property. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative because of the market we're in. It's still a buyer's market right now because of interest rates. So I'm going to knock it $100,000. So let's just say $900,000 is the value of that property once it's completely renovated. The next thing you need to do is multiply it times 0.7. 0.7 or 70% of that 900,000 is 630,000. So that's your next number. So now we have to keep working backwards. The next thing that we need to figure out is how much does the property need? How much work does the property have to go through in order to get it to that $900,000 valuation? Now, based on my experience, based on the size and based on the quality of craftsmanship that is necessary in that neighborhood to be sold at that price, you're going to spend somewhere around $200,000, just period. $200,000 because that whole house has to be gutted. So I would say at least $200,000. So now we're at 630 and we need to subtract 200,000. 200,000 from that is 430,000. So that's the strike point. That's really where you want to be. Now, there is some room for, negotiation. If you pay 450, it's probably still a deal, but 430,000 is the strike point where I would try to get it at. And that's where I'm going to offer to get it at in order to put myself in a good position to either buy the property, fix it up, and sell it myself, or get it under contract at that price and wholesale it to somebody who's going to pay maybe 450 or 460,000. So that's how you really analyze a deal. It's not a crazy formula. At the end of the day, the 70% rule is taking the ARV, the after repair value, multiplying it times 70% and subtracting the repair costs. And that's going to put you at your number. Now you can take a number off of that. You can go even lower if you want to negotiate, or you can go right in at that number and try to find a buyer who's going to pay more. Or you may already have a buyer that has already told you how much they will pay for the property, and you can just get the property at a lower price. So there's different strategies, but that's how I'm going to approach this deal. So thank you for rocking with me today. Hopefully you all learned something. And until next time, get money.